and welcome back to my channel, and welcome to day one of my mega goal planning week, which I think is the name that we have settled on. I swear I probably say it differently every single video, but today is day one, and that means that we are going to do a 2021 recap. So I am kind of playing around with different ways of filming this type of content. I do film quarterly plan with me's every single quarter. So I have a lot of like top-down videos looking at my spreads and all of that, but with this year I really wanted to just kind of chat about how things went. So I am not going to do any sort of top-down videos with this, but we're going to go through all of the main categories of goals that I had and see how things actually went. First things first, this is one of the first things that I decide every year, for the past couple of years at least, are my top 5 goals. Now, top 5 goals, this one has been a bit tough the last 2 years just because of ye old COVID times. A lot of my top 5 goals are pretty big things, and some of them are contingent on me actually being able to travel. So we're gonna see how that actually went. So first of all, my top 5 goals for this year were going to Italy for an immersion class, taking an in-person Korean class, finishing my second font, so making my second font, we'll say, working on my nationality, so my dual citizenship application, and no work weekends. So those were the top 5 goals that I had decided on at the end of 2020. And let's just say I've actually done a pretty good job, but only because I have adapted some of these goals. So we're gonna take them one by one. First of all, Italy. I have not been able to go to Italy. However, I am counting this goal as complete in the context of knowing that I really couldn't travel, because I have actually done several Italian classes. So I did, in 2020, I did at least 2 Italian classes, and this year in 2021, I actually did another 2 Italian classes online. So I did another round with my private teacher, which is actually through the school that I want to go to do this immersion class that I will get to at some point, maybe 2022, fingers crossed. So I did one more round of classes with her, and I also did an Italian art history class, also through that school that was online. It was a 4-week-long course, so 1 class a week in June. And the kind of new thing is I actually am also signed up for, and I've done my first class at this point, I am doing a conversation class through an Italian association here in my town. So given that I actually have done several different types of Italian classes, even though I haven't actually gone to Italy, I am counting this particular top 5 goal as completed, because the main thing was I wanted to get better at speaking Italian, and that's what I've been working towards, and that's what these classes have helped me to do. So the in-person class that I'm actually doing is actually running from the it started the end of September, and it's going to go through June. It'll skip the school holidays, but I have an hour a week of Italian conversation class with a group of people here in my town. So I'm super excited about that, and I think that that actually really, like, that alone, as far as I'm concerned, completes my top 5 goal. And once again, maybe I'll be able to go to Italy in 2022, but I kind of had to adapt that goal this year. Next was the Korean class. So I did, back in the summer, rethink a little bit, because I decided that I didn't want to do the in-person Korean class that I was kind of planning on doing because of the time. It was on a Saturday evening, and I just realized that that was not a good time. It's not a time when I want to leave my house to go and do stuff. So it wasn't really a good choice. But then I found out that the university in my town has actually started doing Korean classes, which I have looked at previously and they never actually happened, but there's enough interest now that they are actually doing a Korean class. So I decided to go ahead and also sign up for that. I have also done the first of those. It is 2 hours a week for 10 weeks, so it is a shorter time period. If it ends up working out well in terms of my schedule, in terms of like how kind of late in the evening it is, and also with my other stuff going on, I might do a second semester, but for right now it is just a 1 semester class. But it's in person, it is with a native Korean teacher, and it's actually, I'm really, really excited about that. As I said, I did go to the first class, and the best thing is that she identified really quickly that even though it's like a beginner's class, there are sort of 3 distinct groups of people within the class. And so there's the people who have absolutely 0 basis whatsoever. There's the people who at least can kind of, you know, read and write the alphabet, even if they can't necessarily understand what they're reading. And then there's a couple of us who have done a little bit more, where I wouldn't say I'm by no means advanced, but at the same time, like, I have a basic understanding of particles, and I kind of generally know how to conjugate things and all of that. But I do need a lot of help in terms of like being able to form full sentences and actually have a conversation with somebody. So it sounds like she's going to sort of have 3 sort of mini groups going on and like kind of work with all of us in our little groups to sort of help everybody in the way that's going to be the best for them. So I'm actually really, really excited about that. I'm really happy that she's taking that approach. So I am counting Korean class as a win. I am doing an in-person Korean class. Even if it's not the one I was planning on doing it, we're calling it a win. Next up was my second font. So, given that my first font took me over 3 years to complete, I am counting this one a win because I got my first font published and I have actually sold a few copies. What is the unit of a font? I've actually sold a few copies of the font and I'm really, really excited about that. Honestly, I just wanted to finally get it finished. So I'm counting that and I am just tabling font number 2 for right now. So again, that one was one that I honestly should have known. I was overly ambitious, thinking that at the point when I made my top 5 goals, I had not even finished my first font. It was overly ambitious to think that I would get anywhere close to even working on my second font. So you know what, that was on me. Live and learn, we adapt. The next one is working on my nationality, so my dual citizenship application. I actually am working on that. It is not fully submitted at this point, but there is still, I'm cautiously optimistic that I will be able to actually submit the application by the end of this year, which is kind of the big thing that I wanted to do this year, because once I submit it, it's going to take between 12 and like 18 months for them to like actually deal with my application and get back to me and like set up the interview and like all of that kind of stuff. So if I can get it submitted before the end of December, I would be super, super happy, but I've already made a lot more progress than I had done previously. Even just like the last month and a half, I've made so much more progress than I have for the entire rest of the year. So we are on track for that one, but it's not yet finished. And the final one is no work weekends. So I had 4 weekends during the previous school year where I did actually work on the weekends. I have actually tracked in my bullet journal how many hours. I think overall, over the course of those 4 weekends, it was about 25 hours that I spent working on stuff. So I don't have a perfect year in terms of no work weekends. However, I will say that having that experience with this new school year, I've actually been doing really, really well, where I have not been bringing any work home on the weekends, and I've also not been bringing work home to do during my at-home time. So for example, on Wednesday, I don't go in until 10. I actually don't bring home work to do in the mornings. Or for example, on Friday, I have 1 class and then I have a 3-hour block of free time. I don't bring home work to do that. And I actually have been fitting work in during my planning periods where I'm at school already and I don't have time to come home. I've been doing my planning and my prep and grading and all of that kind of stuff during those times. And it's actually working pretty well. I mean, knock on wood, hopefully I can keep that up, but I am cautiously optimistic that I might finish out the year with just those 4 weeks from last school year. We'll see. If it does happen, you know, it does happen, but overall, I would say I'm making really, really good progress in terms of keeping work at work as much as possible while still getting done what I need to do, but really kind of maintaining that boundary. And I've noticed that I don't feel nearly as burned out, you know, before the school holidays as I was previously, because I was just doing so much work at home and it was getting to be a little bit too much. So I think that this is progress in the right direction, and even if it's not a perfect year, I'm still counting it as a win for my top 5 goal, because this is like the way that I work now is light years different than even just last year, and definitely different than 2 years ago. And I can tell that it is making a huge difference in terms of my mental health and being able to keep up with everything and not just feel like I'm gonna burn out. So that is fantastic. So that is the top 5 goals. I would say overall, because this is the second year of kind of weird times, I was much more willing and able to sort of adapt the goals that I had set for myself to something that I actually could accomplish. So no, I haven't officially accomplished the top 5 goals that I set as I set them at the end of 2020, but I still have done a lot this year towards these particular goals. I just had to kind of adapt them. So that's the top 5 goals. The next step are my general goals for 2021. So in sort of generalities, we'll say, I have gotten a little bit better with my yearly goals to set things that are a little bit broader that I then break down when I get down to my quarterly goals page. And I think this was something that I had certain goals previous years that were just they were either too specific to be a yearly goal, they really need to be like on a quarter, or they were just things that I didn't really need to do. So I will say there's one big category of things that I think I'm going to knock off my goals list for the future, because this is something that I already do in general, and I don't really like the way I have it in my bullet journal, and I like the way I have it in another format. So those are going to be my savings goals. So this is not at all saying that I'm going to stop saving money. That would be ridiculous. I'm definitely going to keep saving money, but I have for the past 2 years at least put savings goals on my yearly goals. And so for example, this year I did working on sinking funds, working on investments, working on my emergency fund, saving for certain trips, and this, that, and the other. And the thing is, I don't really need those to be goals in my bullet journal because I use my budgeting software. So I do use YNAB. I've used it now for probably 4 years at least. And I find that it really helps me. And within my budgeting software, I set monthly goals to like put this much money to this. So like I have goals that I set, like I'm working on these 3 trips and I'm putting money towards these 3 trips every single month. Or I'm working on my emergency fund and I'm putting this much money towards my emergency fund, or I'm working on a down payment for an apartment if I ever find one that I want to buy, so I'm putting money towards that. Or I have set a bunch of different types of sinking funds that I put a little bit of money in every single month. So I already have those things set up in my budget, and it's got to the point where I was like, I don't really see the purpose of having this in my bullet journal. It's not something that I really use. If I need to check in on things, I go on YNAB. So I think I'm going to just not put that in my 2022 goals, but it is something that I had in my 2021 goals. These are all things that I have been working towards. I have been building up my savings and all of that. So like they are completed goals, but they weren't really useful goals, if that makes sense. The other big one that I kind of need to play around with still, and I made changes based on 2 years ago for this year, and I'm gonna make changes again, are my sewing goals. So I did not at all do Mead Made May. When May came around, I just was not having it. I think I was really busy with work. I don't remember exactly what it was, but it was something that at the end of April, I was like, I'm not doing Mead Made May. Like, it's just not happening this year. I would like to put it on 2022, I think, but for right now, but that is one goal that I decided that I wasn't going to do, basically. The other one is Make 9. I have done Make 9 2 years in a row now. I've gotten closer this year because I set sort of categories. So I had my 9 things were split into 3 different categories. So I had like 50s silhouette stuff, I had sort of Victorian silhouette stuff, and then I had like undergarments and layering pieces. And I've actually blown the 50s out of the park. I made a ton of 50 stuff this year. I have done like 1.5 out of 3 of the Victorian stuff. I actually am working on a walking skirt, which would fall into that category, but it's not finished yet. And I have not done the undergarment stuff really yet. That's one of those that I need to kind of work on. So I'm not sure what I want to do with that for 2022, but that is one of those that it did work better because I did more broad categories rather than saying I want to make this specific pattern, because I change my mind too much. And like, I don't want to feel locked into making something because I put it on my list. I want to see what's in my wardrobe and like think about like, what am I actually wearing a lot of that I want to make something to go with it, or I want to make a second versions for. So for example, I really like this blouse, but I don't know necessarily that I'm going to make this particular one again without making some changes, because there's some like construction things that are a little bit weird. But I have a different style of pattern where it's like, oh, I actually really like this high neck sort of blouse with the front yoke. I have another pattern that maybe I could adapt, and like maybe that would work really well with my wardrobe. So I really like to have that flexibility to change things up. So I'm not sure what that's going to mean for the future, but I will say that general goals for the Make 9 worked much better this year, but even still, I don't think I'm going to finish all 9 things that I had on my list. So another of my big categories is one that I just sort of label home, and that's one that I think I'm going to probably play around with that, which we'll see that I think on Thursday is going to be our pre-planning day for 2022 goals. So we're definitely going to play around with organizing things for next year. So the stuff I had in home goals were, some things I need to take care of with the apartment, which I have been working on. Some of it's out of my control just in terms of the timeline, but I have been working on that kind of stuff. I also had an investment account I wanted to open up with my bank, which I actually did do, which that one actually, for whatever reason, I put under home rather than under savings. Again, sometimes my goals are a little arbitrary, like in terms of their placement. I like to have categories just to make it easier. Like I know where to find that goal, and so I put it there, but we might have to play around with that. So I actually did a lot of the things in the home category. So we need to replace the balcony doors. So we've actually started the process for that, but I say we, my landlords are doing that. So kind of it's out of my hands, but the process has at least started, so that's good. I set up that investment account. I read 50 books. Don't ask me why books are in my home category. I don't really have a reading category, so they just live there. I actually, as of filming, have read 103 books, I think, and I actually have officially filled up the like overflow pages, and I've had to drop a new spread for 2021 books because I was out of space. So the reading goal, definitely we did really, really well on. I've also gone through my shoes and my clothes. I honestly do that about every 6 months or so, just to kind of check in on things, and I'll, you know, either see if I have a friend who's a very similar size, I'll see if it's something that she wants to wear. If it's something that I made that I want to use the fabric, I'll put it in my upcycle pile and I will deal with that. Again, I have a pretty large upcycle pile, we got to deal with that, but I'll deal with it that way. And then if it's something that like I don't have any other use for and it's in good condition, then I do have a place where I can donate some clothes. So I do that periodically just to kind of keep things under control, mostly because I don't have a lot of space. So that one was good. I also did start looking at apartments for apartment shopping, but I've actually kind of hit a bit of an impasse with that, where kind of the main reason that I was thinking about moving was because I really wanted to have a separate studio, because as of right now, like my living room is basically my workspace with a couch in it. You know what I mean? Like I have a giant bookshelf with all of my paper stuff, all of my sewing stuff. I've got some work stuff. I've got a big table, but it's got all of my, like I have 3 sewing machines in this room. I've got my big guillotine paper cutter. Like I've got all of my stuff. I've got a dress form now. And so it's basically, I have this very functional studio that is not actually a living room anymore. Like I have my couch in it, but even the couch I end up putting fabric on if I need to for certain things. And so that was kind of the main reason I was thinking about moving. But the reality is that aside from the fact that I don't have a second bedroom that I can use as a studio, this is my dream apartment. I mean, it is everything that I wanted when I was thinking about what kind of an apartment I ultimately wanted to live in. I'm up high, I get really good natural light, I have a balcony, I'm in the dead center of town, I have a space for a washing machine hookup here. I no longer am in a studio, it is a true 1-bedroom. I've got a very functional kitchen that I can make a bunch of stuff in. Like I actually really love this apartment. And so as I was kind of looking at listings and also knowing like what amount I could get for a loan, I realized that the odds of me finding an apartment that was at least as good as the one I'm currently in within my budget and like still in the center of town where I want it to be was pretty low. So I've kind of tabled that. I'm still putting money aside for a down payment because I think that might be something I want to do, but I'm sort of keeping half an eye out at the listings, but so far nothing's really kind of jumped out at me. So that one's a little bit on standby. So I started it and I did like work on it a little bit, but that's not a completed goal for this year because I honestly don't know when I would potentially end up buying, or if, I mean, TBD kind of thing. So that's kind of in the home category. The other big category I have is language stuff, and you'll see there's some, like for example, I have my citizenship application in the home stuff, even though it is also a top 5 goal, and I'm definitely gonna play around with that a little bit this year. And then the language stuff, I obviously have my Italian class, my Korean class, but I also have a couple of other things. So I do have the reading goals I set for myself in a foreign language. So I've completed my reading goal in French. I am working on my reading goal in Spanish, but I've chosen longer books this year, so they're taking me longer to read. I still have not finished a book in Italian, but you know, making some slow progress on that. In terms of like other studies outside of my classes, the big things I haven't gotten to yet this year are watching a TV series in Italian and doing more Talk to Me in Korean lessons, specifically like reading comprehensions. And there's a series I really like that's on like common mistakes and how to avoid them that I find really, really helpful. So I'd like to still continue working on some things like that. So that might be something that then carries over into 2022. We'll see. And then the final category that I have is sort of social media stuff. So the stuff that goes in here are, you know, filming a backlog, making sure I pay my LLC taxes every quarter, and working on updating my website, which that's actually a big one. I actually think I'm going to shut down my website in the next couple of months. I have to kind of figure that out. And my plan for that is, well, so the reason is I actually hate maintaining the website. I have zero interest or desire to really learn web design and get good at maintaining a website. And so even though I use WordPress, which is supposed to be fairly easy to do, every 6 months or so, there's some kind of a glitch where I can't update posts, for example, or I have issues with something showing up right or whatever. And so I'm just kind of at the point where I've kept it up for a couple of years now, and it's honestly never gotten any better. Like, it's never become like, oh yeah, I want to like start writing more blog posts, or I want to do this, that, and the other. I don't like doing it. So my plan is to actually take any blog posts that I actually have written, which there are a couple, there's not many, but there's a couple. And I want to put those over on my Patreon as public posts, so not behind a paywall. You know, they've been out in the world for so long, I would feel weird putting them behind a paywall. So put them so they don't get lost. And then the majority of my website is honestly just collections of my different video series. So those series are all on YouTube. They're all in playlists on YouTube. They're not necessarily set up like separated by year, but they are all in playlists on YouTube. So I feel like it's not really a super necessary thing. It's something that my like super organized brain likes, but at the same time, I don't think it's really super like, it doesn't really add anything. So I think that's going to be a project to do. So that actually will be a big thing off of my list, because I always have update my website somewhere on one of my lists. So either on my monthlies or on my quarterly trackers. And it's the thing that I put off the absolute most. So I think it's time to just like pull the plug on that one. So in general, I will actually say that my yearly spread is actually, I would say, at least 3/4 filled out. And I am filming this a little early just because obviously I have to start planning for the next year a little bit before the next year actually happens. So I do still have about 2.5 months left in Q4 to kind of work towards things. And there are a couple of things I think I probably will finish. I think I'm gonna finish at least one more book in Spanish. I think I had 3 on my list. So I'd like to get to 1 more, but we'll see if that actually happens. You know, I still am gonna make progress on my nationality application. I still wanna work on getting the balcony doors replaced, like all of that kind of stuff. But overall, I would say that I think this year did go a lot better. And I think that one of the reasons that this year went better is because I went into it knowing or being pretty sure that things were going to kind of stay as up in the air as they were in 2020. And so I was more careful about the types of goals that I made. I did still have a couple of travel goals that, specifically Italy, that I wanted to do, but that I pretty quickly realized, I think I realized by like February, that the odds of me actually being able to go on that trip this year were pretty limited, and that was why I started looking for some other alternatives. So I think that because I kind of went into 2021 with I guess sort of managed expectations already, I set goals for myself that I actually could do, and I also made sure that I set goals that were going to be fun for me to do, so like my reading goals and my sewing goals. And I, spent some time thinking about like, what do I want to do with YouTube? And actually I think that it's been kind of nice in a way that I haven't really been able to do that much traveling or anything like that. Like, I mean, of course I would love for that to be a possibility again, but I do think that it has made me spend more time reflecting, because even though my sort of natural state is I would love to stay at home most of the time, I have like 1,001 things that I can work on at any given point in time. There are things that I would like to do outside of my house, outside of my town. I would like to travel and do different things, but I am at heart a homebody, and this year and last year sort of gave me permission to really lean into that and enjoy the fact that I had to be at home. And so it allowed me to do a lot more reflecting and to actually make some pretty significant changes in certain aspects of my life. And I feel really good about those changes. And I think that is, I don't know, I think that if life had gone on sort of as normal, I probably would have gotten here eventually, but I think it would have taken a lot longer because I wouldn't have had as much time to actually sit and cogitate on this stuff, which is what I need to ultimately make these decisions. So I'm really happy about that. I am really excited to see what 2022 will bring. I mean, I would love to be able to do some kind of travel. I did ultimately do a little bit of traveling in France. I did go to Paris for kind of a long weekend, which was fantastic. And I think it was a really good start because I realized that I actually kind of have a lot of anxiety about traveling again. Just having spent so much time at home and having not gone on, you know, having not spent that much time on public transportation or on trains or in airplanes at all, or in cars even, it is a bit of a stressor for me. And so I think that it was a really good opportunity to, you know, stay in my country, but go somewhere. And I think it was really helpful. And so I think that that might be something that I look into, is starting, you know, if, you know, things start opening up and I am able to travel again, to still kind of keep it small, because that is going to, I think, be a little bit better just for my anxiety. So there you have it. That is the recap of 2021. I would say overall a more successful year goal-wise than 2020. Still, obviously, some things I can work on. I didn't complete absolutely 100% of the goals that I set for myself, but I think I am definitely getting the hang of figuring out how to set goals on the year level, and then really figuring out how to break them down when I go into either specifically the top 5 goals or when I go into my quarters. And I think that's made these more manageable, and it's made it much more likely that I'm actually going to accomplish the majority of the goals that I set for myself. So I'm really excited about that. So that is all I have for today's video. So tomorrow we are going to chat about my top 5 goals for 2022, which I am super excited about. So I will see you then. Bye. Hey guys, so if you've made it all the way to the end of this video and are actually watching my end screen and you're not subscribed to my channel, I would really appreciate it if you would. There's a little button right there for you to do it. And if you're interested in watching some more of my videos, I have links to 2 of my older videos off to the left there, so you can check those out if you would like to, and I will see you guys in my next video. Bye.